This
All right.
conference will now be recorded.
So welcome back. This is the third in our on our book talk series. If you've missed the last sessions, we have recorded them, so please check them out. They're on YouTube, and we'll make sure the links are broadly distributed. We have one more next week, so please come back for that. And if you've joined before, we have mixed up the intro a little bit to keep you on your toes, just so it doesn't get completely monotonous. And without further ado, I'm going to show you just a you can hear me, right? Okay.
Yeah. How do I mute me?
You disappeared briefly, Merritt, but now you're back.
I'm back. We're
Oh,
gonna.
Okay. Trying to figure out how to mute it on this end.
All right. So hi, everyone. My name is Marit Vagstead. I'm the Trade Sales Director here at Springer Nature, and we're very pleased to have you for our book talk, Starry-eyed with Springer. So as you probably saw in that video, our mission at Springer Nature is advancing discovery. We believe that science and learning matter, and our goal is to connect the right information and help researchers, educators, clinicians, professionals find the information they need and also publish the information they need to publish to get it out there. So brands like Scientific American, Springer Healthcare, Nature Research, and Biomed Central are names you might recognize that sit in our portfolio. Next slide, please. As a company, we're 5 years old. Springer Nature in name was founded in 2015 when Springer Business and Media merged with portions of Macmillan Science and Education. This formed the Springer Nature Group. We have portfolios in books, journals, databases, and other services, and are organized into 3 divisions: research, professional, and education. Those on the phone today, on the video today, work in the books division, either in publishing editorially or in sales. And we all sit within the research organization. Quick mention of Macmillan because it can cause some confusion for outsiders. The brands Macmillan Education, under that Macmillan International Higher Education, and the imprint Palgrave Macmillan are all part of the Springer Nature family. Other Macmillans, such as Macmillan Publishers or Macmillan Learning, are affiliates of ours, meaning that we share some common ownership, but they actually operate as completely independent companies from Springer Nature. Next slide, please. We have the largest catalog of books available in comparison to any other English language academic publisher, which is quite impressive. As you saw, something like 300,000 active ISBNs, so it's a lot to cipher through. And I just wanted to call out some of our key imprints to make you a bit more familiar. So A-Press, we had a session with them a couple of weeks ago, so check that out if you missed it. They work on books intended for developers, IT professionals, and tech communities, and are very well known within their segment. Red Globe Press is our HSS textbook imprint. They publish key textbooks meant for core adoptable use in classes, and then some study skills books. This imprint at one time was branded Palgrave without the Macmillan. So we rebranded it a couple years ago, so this name goes back a little ways, but it did evolve from that. And then Palgrave Macmillan is award-winning HSS content. It's very interdisciplinary in scope. Last week we looked into some political and social science titles on that list. And they are very well known for politics, international relations, history, and finance and economics. And I'll give a quick plug. Next week's talk is actually with editors from that business and finance list. So definitely come back because we're already getting really excited about that one. And then today the focus is going to be Springer, which is our core STEM imprint. And Springer has a broad portfolio that covers pretty much every academic subject, both STEM and HSS. And today we're going to go to the more popular science side of that, and I will let the editors dive into that in a lot more detail. And within that, we have a sub-imprint called Copernicus, and you're going to hear a lot more about that. So I'm going to let editorial take over on that subject. Next slide, please. And there's a lot of text here, but what we really want to convey is that our crossover trade titles are accessible to a large audience, but uniquely backed by the academic prestige of being from Springer Nature. And I think diversifying our reach so we can connect with more booksellers like yourselves, more public librarians, and kind of find a new, maybe newer readership for Springer Nature content is definitely a part of our trade sales strategy. We think our books are an unparalleled resource for students, for researchers, but also for curious minds. And to put it into a little more context, we have 550 expert editors who are based all over the world that work on our books. Our books undergo a rigorous peer review process that helps ensure their quality, and they address popular science and global concerns, which you're going to hear a lot more about today. Next slide, please. And then what works here in terms of sales and interest tends to have a lot to do with what's happening in the world. 2020, I don't think any of us would say has not been an eventful year in terms of world events. So it's no wonder that things like economic crisis and pandemics and racial and social justice issues have been topics that we've seen trending both in our sales and sort of the interest we have. With our catalog being so large, we have a lot to offer if you're looking for well-researched content on any subject for your patrons or customers. So please reach out to us and use us as a resource to distill that information. And that wraps it up for me. I'll hand it over to Jenny.
Hi, thank you, Mark, for the thorough brand overview for Springer Nature. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Liu. We may have met 2 book talks ago or last week's book talk, but I'd like to introduce everyone who is also here from the sales team, Sarah and Terry. They work with us as a specialist and analyst, and for everyone on the call, we'd love to get to know you and connect with you in this kind of atmosphere. And if you could just enter a little brief introduction about yourself, your name, a little bit about yourself, and just for our future book talks, just different subjects you'd like to see. So it would be nice to kind of shape it and tailor it to what we're hearing from our guests. Today, we are thrilled to partner with our editorial colleagues from Springer Astronomy and Food Science in this virtual event series. We hope to share the latest news and innovations from the STM community and to share fantastic books from our editors. So kicking it off with Starry-eyed with Springer, here is Dan for an introduction to the popular sciences.
Hi, I'm Dan Filatko. I'm Senior Editor in Food Science at Springer. And here we have Springer Popular Science. Springer's Popular Science collection represents some of our most read volumes in the fields of astronomy, environment, life sciences, math, medicine, and much, much more, as you're about to find out today. Readers looking for authoritative coverage in a wide range of fields in science will find our popular books are an excellent way to explore new discoveries, groundbreaking research, and complex topics about our world. And now we will introduce some of our key authors that we'll be speaking about today. As for myself, I will be speaking about Ole Moritzen, who's a research scientist and professor of gastrophysics and culinary food innovation at Copenhagen University. If you Google him, you will see he's a very famous man. And I'll let Hannah talk about her key authors.
Hi, yes. So just to introduce myself very quickly, I'm Hannah Kaufman. I'm an associate editor covering space and astronomy. So a large part of my portfolio is dedicated to popular science in those subjects. I also co-lead Copernicus, which is this special trade imprint, which I'll talk about later. But just to highlight 2 authors from my main program, this is Manfred Dutch von Ehrenfried. He was a former NASA flight controller for a lot of the original NASA missions that helped bring us to the moon the first time. So he was part of the first wave of, the space race back in the 1960s through perhaps the 80s. And then next to him is Emily Lakdawala. She is a much younger scientist. She's very popular on social media. She writes a lot of blogs, science journalism, and is just all around an incredible science communicator. So we have so many different experts in many different niches, and you'll see how that plays into my program. So if you can go to the next slide, please. I'll give you an overview of what that program is. So I manage popular science in space and astronomy. It's a one-stop shop for the space enthusiast, the amateur astronomer, or the hobbyist, and then the purely curious reader. So whether you're interested in telescope building with your bare hands or building a settlement on the surface of Mars, we have books written at a level and a style that will suit those needs. So to help readers, we've broken the content into multiple series. And then we also do some special format books, which I'll take a look at. But really, if you're a customer or a bookstore, you can really curate your content to fit whatever core subject and skill level is most appropriate for you. So I'll go into much greater depth about these areas, but first, as a testament to what I mean when I say one-stop shop, I want to highlight a very special book called Luna Cognita, which to me really demonstrates the caliber of books we can produce. The cover for that is on the very far right. So this was released earlier this year. It's a $90 for a 3-volume set. That's a whopping 1,700 pages. So this thing contains everything you ever wanted to know about the moon and more. It's so much more than a dry encyclopedia. There's sections on science, history, practical tips for observing the moon, and just it features 900 images, 400 of which are in color. It's printed on beautiful glossy paper. So the whole idea is this is a lifetime purchase and a lifetime investment, and any level of reader can find something in it that's worth their money and their time. So this is just a taste of what's to come. And if you could go to the next slide, please. I'll go into the key series in my list. So the first one we'll take a look at is Springer Praxis Space Exploration. This is a popular science series. It chronicles space history and technology across the world, and it's our most popular line within space and astronomy. It really delves into the details and takes a focused look at different aspects of a nation's space program throughout time and around the world. So what's going on in space right now? I think a lot of people, at least in my generation, don't realize that we haven't been back to the moon in over 50 years. And we're in a really exciting time because there is a renewed effort to travel to the moon and maybe even to Mars, who knows? But traveling to the moon could happen in the next several years. And it's so fun to attend conferences and be around these people because there's this whole new wave of energy and devotion to making this happen. And one of the things that is fueling that is the US. Their current administrative program says that we should land people on the moon by 2024 through their Artemis lunar program. And we've recently published a book on this topic that's on the far left. So Artemis will be our second wave of lunar landings, but it's a historic first because a woman astronaut is expected to touch down on the moon. So NASA's original program was Apollo, and that was named after a male god. Artemis is his sister, a powerful goddess and a huntress in her own right. So this is talked about in our Artemis program book, and it's why a female figure is portrayed on the front cover. So this feeds into a larger conversation about the space industry around gender and cultural representation. Many of our books will critique or celebrate or try to predict these trends within the space industry. So just as a testament to that, 2 covers over, you'll see Women Spacefarers, which is a biographical look at many women in the industry over a large swath of time that paints a very broad picture of these incredible females involved and what they were doing. Or for a more historical look, we have something like NASA's Space Shuttle astronaut selection. That's the next cover over, which discusses how the program tried to diversify its astronauts in the 70s and the 80s to include more women of color, women and people of color. So these are all adding to this conversation, exploring past precedents and future plans to remedy this lack of diversity. And that's just a taste of the kinds of books we publish in this series. So if you could go to the next slide, I want to switch gears a little bit. So this is my second series, the Patrick Moore Practical Astronomy series. It's got a much different flavor than the last one. The previous series was all about space exploration. This series is practical hands-on material for amateur astronomers. It's really our hobbyist how-to guides. Many of the books don't assume prior knowledge, rather they'll introduce you to the hobby and give you all the information you need to get started, including tips on equipment purchasing, telescope designs, troubleshooting, observing techniques, and so much more. And it's not just for people with telescopes. You know, we cover how to observe with binoculars, how to view eclipses, and other entry-level projects that don't require significant investments. You know, we cover the best and darkest viewing sites in the world, but we also have a book called Stargazing Under Suburban Skies for people who don't have that luxury. So the books in this series are standalone, so you can read them all separately, but in most cases, actually, people who dive into this hobby, they'll recognize Springer books, and in particular this series, through that nice rainbow and lens design, and they'll start collecting these titles. So if you do have astronomy and space books, this is a nice collection to have. And all of these books are routinely updated to stay relevant with the latest equipment and research. And just to show you what I mean by that, the biggest topic for us right now is astrophotography. That's taking astronomical pictures with a camera or even just your iPhone and then using image software to process them. So our books will try to teach you how to optimize these skills. And the leftmost book you'll see on this slide it's called Inside PixInsight. So PixInsight is a really popular astro imaging processing software. It's incredibly powerful, but very difficult to learn. So this is the go-to guidebook for it. The second edition was released earlier this year, and likely a third edition will be out in the next 1 to 3 years. So this field is moving fast all the time, and we're always keeping up with those trends. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. We'll take a look at the last area of my astronomy and space program, and these are books for armchair astronomers. They're really for people who don't want to set up any equipment. They rather want to lean back, relax, and learn something new. So the key series within this area is Springer Praxis Popular Astronomy. There is so much more beyond that, but if you want a very focused collection, start there to get your bearings, and then you can explore a wider range of popular astronomy titles on our website. So just looking at the Popular Astronomy series first, there are incredibly fun titles. I just want to highlight Celestial Sleuth for a moment. That was written by a professor who teaches investigative astronomy. He uses astronomical techniques to understand things like how the phases of the moon and the tides affected famous battles in the Civil War, or figure out what time famous artists like Van Gogh painted some of their famous paintings, and how events in the night sky at that time influenced the way the scene turned out. So this book and many more really showcase this fusion between astronomy and literature and history in a really peculiar and fascinating way. We do also have more sciencey books in this area. One title is Chelyabinsk Superbolide. So people don't really realize how crazy these events can be when it's happening in a far-off place like Russia. But this was a meteor that broke up and exploded over Russia in 2013. It was the largest natural object to enter our atmosphere in over a century. The meteor caused a shockwave that damaged thousands of buildings, injured over 1,000 people, and was seen over 60 miles away. So this book is written by the team of Russian scientists from Chelyabinsk State University that investigated the event and tracked down the giant chunks of rock that were left behind. So it features dozens of never before published photos that they gathered from people who witnessed the event from miles around. So for all of these books, in particular to Springer, there's this pattern, we strike this incredible balance between the story of science and this incredible visual story told through these helpful figures and photos and drawings. And I think just one more book to really showcase how we do this is that last book on the screen, The Beauty of Space Art. This features contributions by over a dozen artists. There's over 200 high quality illustrations. This one is forthcoming, so I just saw the proofs and I'm very excited for it. But it includes work by people like Alan Bean, who was the late Apollo 12 astronaut, and he himself was a member of the organization that put this book together. And this is more of a coffee table book, but since it's Springer, it's not just an art gallery. It's got informative information about science and art techniques, and it shows you how these space artists are helping NASA create models for spacecraft or helping planetary scientists visualize the surface of an exoplanet. So there's just such a beautiful array of content, and it's written in such a passionate, poetic style. These are the kinds of books that we publish in this area, and I just wanted to share that with you all. So if you could go to the next slide. I'd like to take a look at just some upcoming promotions. So in the month, actually starting this week and going into the month of August, we're doing a Mars mission campaign. Currently, there's a lot of activity in this area. The United Arab Emirates Hope probe just launched. That's its first interplanetary probe. That will soon be joined by NASA's Perseverance rover and China's Tianwen probe and rover. So we're in this really special window where we can actually launch these things on their way to Mars. This comes around every 2 years. So if we miss this period, that's another 2 years of waiting. So in celebration of all of these incredible missions, we've put together a ton of related content. These include, book collections, free chapters, author Q&As and essays, and just really fun content. So there will be a landing page for it, and we'll be tweeting about it. So keep your eyes out for that. And then the other one is the Perseid Meteor Shower campaign. That's not yet running. We'll see that sometime in August. So the Perseid Meteor Shower comes every year. The light show peaks between August 11th or 13th this year. And also for all of you guys who like stargazing, there is a comet right now called Neowise that is visible right now with the naked eye. If you want to go out, at nighttime or when the sun's rising and try to find it, you will be able to see it. And that lasts until the end of July. So this page will also feature a ton of fun content curated specifically for stargazers, and that will be available in August. So with that, that wraps up my main program, and I just want to take a look now at Copernicus, if you could move to the next slide. So I co-lead this special interdisciplinary imprint with another colleague of mine. It is the broadest, most interdisciplinary series that I work with, and one of the broader ones at Springer, I believe. It is really popular science facing. There's no tough jargon, no mathematics, and they're very special collection. It's a very special collection of books written by authors across the sciences. So none of the credit really goes to me for these books because all of them were pitched by different colleagues of mine. They're at the forefront of their own respective fields. So they'll send these book ideas to me, and I love to support them. And we come out with this incredible collection that really gives you a unique sense of what Springer publishes and all of the different perspectives that we bring to the table. So as you'll see from these books on this page, the scope is incredibly wide. You can see psychology and medicine, and then nuclear engineering. So it runs the gamut in terms of scope, but it's always with the general reader in mind. And just to show you how fun and informative these can be, I just want to highlight Havana Syndrome. Again, that's by, it was handled by another editor, another colleague of mine. So at some point in the news, you might have heard about this mysterious sonic weapon in Cuba that was targeting American diplomats and causing a lot of injuries. So this book investigates those events, and it presents medical theories about what really happened. Was it actually a weapon? Was it caused by mass hysteria, or was it even a local insect population? And then just to take a look at some more books, if you could go to the next slide. These are just two forthcoming titles. The first, What is Random, is a second edition by a mathematician who explores some of the bigger questions in life around cause and effect, chance, fate, and randomness. And then the one on the right is Daily Poison. That's about pesticides, and it's written by a professor in the natural and life sciences. So no matter what you're interested in reading at that time, you'll find a book on this list that will be right for you. And then with that, that sums up all of my program. So I want to hand it over to Dan now to go into his.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Hannah. As I said earlier, I'm Dan Falatko. I work as a senior editor in the food science program here at Springer. And the great thing about food science is that it's an incredibly colorful and diverse field. And that's an absolute pleasure to work within and design within. There's a wide range of topics and an interesting discourse surrounding each topic. And we bring in highly commercial titles in this program. It would be an absolute understatement to say that this is a rapidly changing industry, which makes for an exciting range of subjects, from food safety to manufacturing and processing, to engineering, to sustainability, to alternative food sources, and beyond. Plus, at the end of the day, nearly everyone loves food, and everybody does need food. So there's always potential for highly commercial titles. Next slide, please, Jenny. Over the past 2 decades, consumers have been increasingly demanding transparency in the foods that they eat, demanding clean label ingredients and ethically processed foods from an industry that really since its inception has been focused on the bottom dollar and utilizing long-standing methods for manufacturing, packaging, transport, and the handling of foods. Naturally, this has led to a high range of debate within the industry and between the industry and the public, leading to a massive potential for highly commercial food science titles, both to the industry and to the layman reading population as a whole. For example, we have Future Foods by well-known food scientist David McClements, which offers cutting-edge technological advances in the food sector, from 3D printing of foods, where you actually print up your dinner sitting at home, all the way to nanotechnology, gene editing, nutraceuticals, and probiotics, all the way to the utilization of insect foods to create a more sustainable food supply. According to many food scientists, one day we may all be eating grasshoppers, crickets, and more to get our protein and to sustain the world's food supply. So you can see why this book would be popular, both within the industry and to a wide range of popular science readers. Next up, we have Size Matters Why We Love to Hate Big Food, which features my personal favorite Springer book cover, very graphic novel-esque. This book dives straight into the reasons why consumers are skeptical of today's food systems and how to restore the trust between consumer and industry, getting right to the heart of the debate and the radical changes and controversies within the industry. The great thing about this book is it's written from an industry insider. It's taking into account the concerns of the public, talking to both the industry on how to build that trust back up and to the general public on how to once again build trust in big food, in the food science industry. So this is quite a popular title across both sides, we could say. And speaking of controversy, we have In Defense of Processed Foods by Robert Schufelt. This book makes the argument that many of the dangers allegedly possessed by processed foods are exaggerations based on highly selective views of experimental studies. The book aims to present a more nuanced view of the benefits and limitations of food processing, and in the end makes the argument against both the sophisticated marketing of big food and the self-appointed food gurus with little knowledge in nutrition. The thing the debate rarely is in this industry is nuanced, and that makes this book a really refreshing viewpoint that has pulled in thousands of readers, both from the industry and the consumer market base. So these are really just some fine examples of the type of sophisticated and healthy debate that makes current food science so exciting, and why we look to publish titles that really speak to that debate and that really reach across both sides and end up having a wide range of popular appeal. Next slide, please, Jenny. In Springer Food Science, we have the pleasure of working with some of the biggest and most respected names in the industry. For example, we have Richard Hartel of the University of Wisconsin, who has contributed two of our highest selling popular titles. First, we have the ever popular Candy Bites, featuring my second favorite Springer book cover, which pulls back the curtain on the science behind our favorite candies. This book covers everything from Pixie Sticks to Jawbreakers to Jordan Almonds to Tootsie Rolls and beyond. If you've ever wondered how candy corn is made, if you've ever wondered why Baby Ruth bars float in water, then this is your book. Pulling back to take a wider view, Food Bites expands the scope to cover the science behind all of the foods we eat. Is the quality of beer really affected by the type of water used? How can you keep your guacamole from turning brown? Just like Candy Bites, this is a humorous and highly informative work that has been massively popular with both the general public and within the industry since its inception. Dr. Hartel is that rare food scientist that is skilled writing for the trade market, breaking down complex science to engaging language that mass audiences with no scientific background can easily digest, infusing his highly informative works with a humor and levity that attracts a broad scope of readers. These books have been perennial favorites. They fly off the shelves at every conference, and they will continue to do so for the years and decades to come. Next slide, please, Jenny. I wanted to take this opportunity to showcase two forthcoming books that we're very excited about. These are both authored by the aforementioned gastrophysicist and culinary innovation professor Ole Moritzen of the University of Copenhagen. Both of these books moved a lot of copies in their original Danish editions, and we're really pleased to announce their forthcoming translations coming to the English market this fall. Cephalopods, Seafood for Today and for the Future, focuses on the culinary delicacies of octopus, squid, and cuttlefish. These plentiful creatures are promoted as an alternative to meat in the home kitchen, offering an assortment of recipes and preparation techniques that aim to combat the myth that these foods are a tough challenge to prepare in the home. Even the most adventurous home cooks tend to shy away from these types of seafoods, but Dr. Morrison aims to alleviate this fear by presenting a variety of simple recipes and tips that will open up this delicacy to even the most amateur of home chefs, such as myself. Equally exciting is the English translation of Sei Mono, the Japanese Way, which focuses in on the most delicious and best kept secrets of Japanese cuisine. These elegant side dishes of pickled vegetables, flowers, rhizomes, and fruits that accompany many Japanese dishes. The rich cultural history of these dishes is explored, plus the beneficial health aspects such as improved digestion. A wide variety of recipes and preparation techniques that allow readers to create these dishes in their home kitchens. The great appeal behind both of these books is that unlike your average cookbook, they don't simply list the number of recipes and tips and then tack on an introduction and a few photos. Both books delve into the culture and history of these foods so that readers can learn about what they're cooking as they're doing it. These are the rare cookbooks that can be read casually, even if not in the process of cooking the dishes themselves. And really the only tough choice for readers is to decide whether to place these in the kitchen with the other cookbooks, or on the reading shelf, or on display on the coffee table. Like I said, both of these books sold thousands in their Danish language editions, so opening them up to the much wider English market, we're certainly expecting big things from both of them. So as I hope I've demonstrated well enough here, food science is a rapidly evolving industry with a plethora of interesting discussion and endless potential for highly commercial popular science titles across a broad range of colorful, controversial, and always appetizing subjects.
Okay, thank you so much to Hannah and Dan for their excellent preview of the list. I hope that we peeled back the curtain on all things astronomy, space, and food science here at Springer Nature. If you'd like to stay informed and hear more about what's happening at Springer Nature, you can certainly follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. And you can also visit the Springer Nature blog Springboard for reviews and commentaries on the latest innovations and ideas in the STM world, and for book previews and blog posts from our authors and editors as well. So we're really thrilled to launch our fall trade catalog to coincide with the launch of the book talk. The trade catalog represents our front list, recently published titles, and our best-selling backlist. The trade catalog also features our key publicity, marketing, and commercial-facing titles. The catalog, the origin of the catalog, it was created to make it easier for booksellers and librarians to learn about our trade offerings. It's a first glimpse at growing trends and features, backlist highlights from Springer Nature in any given subject area, from business all the way to popular science, as you have just saw from our editors at Springer. The catalog is also available on Edelweiss, along with additional specialty and quarterly collections. And speaking of Edelweiss, we wanted to share a recap of everything we have available for booksellers and for the bookselling community. We have curated catalogs, dedicated imprint catalogs, especially one for Springer, as you just saw, a brand kit, which is an overview of our key subjects and imprints. And then for bookstores, we have a whole space created for our regional catalogs, or for our trade catalogs, and we just developed a specialty collection for Black Lives Matter from Springer Nature, which is now available. The books in this collection amplifies Black voices and the issues raised by the Black Lives Matter movement. So you'll find topics and themes such as Black culture, race and history, Black identity, and social inequality and ethnicity. Of course, you can always reach out to your Springer Nature rep if you would like more guidance on our catalogs, or for more information in general about all of our books and everything you just saw during our book talk. So I want to thank everybody for attending today, and we'd love to open it up to questions and develop a conversation around anything that you would like to see in the future, or just to get to know you better. So I will stop recording.
This conference will now be recorded.